I've been somewhat of a connoisseur of the Need for Speed series ever since the release of the original Need for Speed back in 1994. This was a landmark racing game brought to us by Road and Track magazine in conjunction with EA back when EA was a much smaller team that brought us some amazing titles. Growing up with Need for Speed, I was lucky enough that I was able to get the titles upon release, or play them with a friend at their place. Over the years though, it grew into a fantastic game with such releases as Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit, High Stakes, and the Underground series. Unfortunately, after the time of Most Wanted, it started going a little generic and wonky, although I did enjoy the Need for Speed The Run. Most of you already know that I'm a fan of racing games, and cars in general. To gauge more where I enjoy my racing, I sit around the middle between arcade and simulation, leaning a little more towards the simulation side of things. The Crew, of course, Project Cars, the Need for Speed Shift series, and then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm a huge fan of the Burnout series, and everyone over at the, well, now purchased by EA, Criterion Games. But Need for Speed 2015, or rather 2016, as I'll be calling this as it's, out on PC now in 2016, as it just released last week, I seem to have mixed feelings about it. Initially, the settings in the menu, you get the standard graphic options, res, quality, AA, control mappings, audio, but there was something missing. I just couldn't find anywhere to set the controls to manual. When tuning, I finally found where to change it to manual transmission, but this is right at the bottom of the car's tuning menu. Why isn't this a game option like in every other racing game? Upon starting the game, I was greeted with some decent cutscenes, but honestly, they seemed a little forced. Don't get me wrong, props to the FMV actors. It's the script that lets them down with the whole dude bro attitude towards the silent protagonist and each other, leaving a lot more to be desired or just wishing to be able to skip them entirely. Right from the beginning, once one of the characters are talking you up about a 500-foot drift you performed through an intersection during the initial race before you even start playing, a 500-foot drift. When I got control of the car and started driving, I was amazed that it could have been performed in that piece of shit. The damn thing felt pedal powered, could barely do 130 k's an hour, handled like the steering rack had rusted, and would only perform drifts from the oil the engine was leaking onto the bloody road. Luckily this didn't last long, as you drive straight to the HQ to select your new car with the option of a Honda Civic, Mustang Fox Body and Subaru BRZ. Deciding to see how bad it can get, I selected the Fox Body. I know, I should have taken the BRZ, but I wanted to see if it was any better than the starting car of the same model. The best thing about it was that it was red and had drift stickers. It was still pretty shit. The handling model of the cars in the game can be adjusted, just like you can also adjust the sensitivity of the controller, but it just didn't feel right. I know in these types of games you start with a horrible car to make the tuned cars feel awesome once you get the upgrades, but this was just beyond a joke. You don't want to make your customers feel like refunding the game within the first hour of playing. As I purchased the limited edition, after doing the tutorial missions, I was happy to find that I could get the BMW M3 for free with some parts. This feels a million times better, but here is where the handling model starts coming unstuck. I enjoy being able to have the option of smooth grip racing, and when needed, weight shifting into a drift if I'm coming into a corner too hot. But it just doesn't do this. I tried leaving the car in the neutral setting and found that either it was unbalanced at high speeds, wanting to drift, or would be too sticky when attempting to drift a corner. Setting it more towards drift between full drift and neutral caused it to feel less sticky, but at anything over 190 k's, the car would fishtail when taking long corners on the freeway. I know what they were going for here, but the only advice I can give is have two cars, one for racing and one for drifting. But now I have to go back to the HQ and change the car depending on what type of race I want to do, becoming a right pain in the arse. There's a pretty extensive list of performance upgrades to mess with new parts and tiers unlocking as your driver reputation level increases, but I did cry bullshit when upgrading the camshaft on my RX-7. Rotaries don't have camshafts. I own an FD3S and I want to know where I can get one. This was something that was missed or no attention to detail. I know it's only for one car, but come on, Attention to detail. You're making a game with fully licensed cars. Devs, know your shit, please. Garaging up to 4 other cars seems a little limiting though. But the roster of cars is pretty damn good, ranging from low-range 1980 models to the most modern options. Visual customization looks impressive, but the interface seems a little bit clunky. I'm glad that they put in the ability of selecting the part and then editing from there, but on certain cars the mods are pretty limited. As this is only for a few, and the amount of cars you can buy and customise, it's a great effort in the amount that has been put in. The gameplay modes are just your standard affair of circuit, sprint, drift. There doesn't seem to be any drag in the game at all. Then there's the reputation system based on speed, style, and outlaw. So, to increase your outlaw, driving poorly is always good. There is nowhere in the city that's safe from smashing bollards and traffic lights and power poles. And even failing a drift to increase your style points, well, smash down those turning signs for extra points. The AI in the game is nothing special. Typical racing AI, pursuit AI, and then there's the open multiplayer aspect of automatically popping in and out of sessions with other online players. Racing AI does suffer from a little bit of rubber banding, but not really as much as you think it does. Actually, there is something special. The in-game AI can fly. I wish I was able to fly. The only thing I can do is teleport, and that's pretty generic these days. The map is close to, if not, a carbon copy of the Undergrounds 2 map, but it doesn't block you out of the districts. You can drive anywhere from the get-go, look around for collectibles, or engage in police chases. It's still early game for me after playing around 3 to 4 hours, but the pursuits don't seem too challenging. But I guess I've got some pretty powerful toys early into the game. Camera angles don't seem to get in the way too much either. There were a lot of people, including myself, that wasn't too keen on some of the active camera angles, but this seems to do okay here. Swaying with the action like it's attached to a crane following behind you, slightly changing the perspective when manually panning, and even side following you during a drift or moving to a ground stationary location when performing donuts. But the crash cam is terrible. Just look at this mess. Sure, it's quick to finish, but most of the crashes that I've had felt like it shouldn't have triggered, or like a big brother saying, "Hey, you scraped that guardrail doing 210. I'll take that controller from you and put you back on the right side of the road, you dumbass." In the end though, I can see the detail they put into the game, but it just hasn't held me like it should. I didn't have any real level of expectation going in, and have been left feeling like it was just a reattempt at making an update for Underground 2. Overall, the game is pretty average. Some will like it, some won't. And it's not that I haven't really enjoyed it, there's just nothing new and special here besides the graphical updates.